Hey, welcome to the show. Happy President's Day to everyone that's viewing. Hopefully, you're getting some well-needed rest during this season. Today, we've got a good show for you. We're going to be talking about some pandemic changes that have happened in the admissions world. We've talked a little bit about that in some previous discussions, but this one's going to be more focused on what's been done over at Moravian Academy, as well as what's kind of here to stay, and trying to give some examples of what might be here to stay and what to prepare for. We've got Director of Admissions, Ingrid Gerber, with us. So let's bring her on without further ado. Hey, Ingrid, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Jesse, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having us.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so, we always like to get started with getting a little background about yourself, your journey in admissions, how you've kind of traveled in through the independent school and your current role and what you love about the job, what excites you about it every day.
Yes, so my journey is kind of a boring one. I came I came to Moravian Academy in 1989. Yeah, I was 11 years old. No, just kidding. And I was a faculty member. I came in as a teacher, and I taught for almost 12 years. And then I retired when my daughter was born. Spent a little bit of time home with her, and then coming back. At that time, there really wasn't any open teaching positions. The director of admissions for the lower school was retiring, and I thought I could do that. And so I applied for the position. So really not having boots on the ground experience. I had the perspective of being a faculty member. I had subbed in almost every single classroom. And then I was a parent. So my perspective was one of a lot of information about the school. So that's kind of how I came to Moravian Academy, and I've been there ever since.
I tell you, there's such benefits to being a parent at the school, because you get to see both sides of that, especially in the missions department. What does re-enrollment look like? What is that experience like? You get to get that firsthand experience as a parent, or sometimes as a relative as well. We always talk about the benefits of having alumni there because they know the experience. It's impacted them. They could tell their story with every tour that comes around. But as a parent, that's the other side of the coin that really benefits you and makes you so much more aware of how things are working and how to make things better for your families. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that, having one that goes all the way through, starting in pre-K and being a lifer, you don't want to overshare. You don't want it to be, you don't want to personalize it to your own parental experience. But there are definitely times when you can say, in my experience, this is what benefited us. Because when they say, why should I come to Moravian Academy? You're going to give them the admission spiel, but they almost trust a little bit more. As a parent, you've also chosen this route, and, there were probably very good, clear reasons for why. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about that a little bit, tell us a little bit about what draws families to Moravian Academy.
So Moravian Academy, just for perspective, we are in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour north of Philadelphia, so on the northeast side of Pennsylvania. We are in the Lehigh Valley. Lehigh Valley is a smaller, area comprised of, Bethlehem, Easton, Allentown. It's a very, very public school oriented area. You've got all of the independent schools in Philadelphia. You've got, New York that's not that far. Even some New Jersey schools, there are good public schools there, but they have a breadth of families who do choose independent school. And Moravian Academy is pretty much the only game in town. Within a 30-mile radius, we are the only independent school. There are charters, there are really good public schools. So our competition is a little bit different than a lot of the other independent schools in certain sectors of our nation. And what I think, so Moravian has been able to, over a number of years, draw families who are really looking for a place that will allow their child to meet their potential. We're competing with some really good public schools. It's not where a lot of places there really isn't an alternative. And so our marketing has to be tweaked a little bit differently. And I think parents are looking for, that personalizing of education, unleashing that curiosity in the student, having them meet their potential and giving them opportunities that they probably wouldn't get in a public school. So, it's a hard sell sometimes. People are
Yeah.
like, why would I pay that much money when I can have my public option that's just perfectly fine? And what we're seeing more and more and more is we're having a very, there's more deliberation about, now looking at what is this going to look like, maybe not in high school, but 5 years out of high school, or even going off to college. What are we teaching our young children, and what skills are they carrying them with them? And that seems to be the biggest, reason why I think a lot of people are looking, have in the past, and particularly now looking at independent schools.
Yeah, that value of, student success after they leave. What happens. Obviously, you always have those diamonds are rough, no matter where you are. But on a mass scale, generally speaking, percentage wise, what are your students doing compared to somewhere else, and is that a possibility, or how can that be a possibility for my student? I know the past couple of weeks we've had a lot of conversation about specialty programs and things, but through our conversation about Moravian Academy, something came up, and I just want to kind of throw it in there. But you guys have a real interesting independent research project that the kids have to do. I'd love for you to explain that to you, because I thought it was a very interesting thing, and how you were able to utilize the different personnel in there. Really, it makes, when you were explaining it, it really felt like a real world application kind of getting done at the high school level. So I'd love for you to plug it a little bit and, tell us about it.
Sure. So it's, it is at the high school level, but if you are someone that comes, say you come in 9th grade, you will absolutely have these personal learning, independent research projects at your fingertips. Some of them are optional, some of them are sort of mandatory.
Okay.
But we sort of build this all the way through. So when you're in elementary school, you're not going to be, developing a thesis and having your research project. But so much of what they do is delving a little bit deeper into, content they might be covering. So if it is, United States history, they're going to choose someone who has relevance, and they're going to go a little bit further. And it might be multimedia. They might be pulling in a digital presentation. They might be doing something else about, baking or cooking. So it's theme based. It's sort of pulling in a little bit more than just, very two-dimensionally learning about a time period in history, or a person, or an infamous person from that time.
Sure.
In middle school, they go a little bit deeper. They do in 7th grade. We like to use acronyms at Moravian Academy, and SCORE is the acronym for like what our 7th graders are doing. And that's student-centered. It's an ability to do some research. They are doing they're again choosing a topic that holds interest to them. So, sparking that curiosity, that passion. And what they're doing is they are using journaling. They are working with their faculty members, and they are sort of developing sort of like the learner's journey. They're taking these elements and questioning all the way along, so that they're going on like sort of this learning journey, in something that they're fascinated about. Presentations. So they're getting their feet wet as to what it means to just kind of dig a little deeper. And then in the high school level, our freshmen are doing interdisciplinary research experiences. We call it FIRE. And these freshmen will interact with other chairs, other departments in English, in history, in science. And they can use resources. I think I talked to you a little bit about how we've developed sort of this Moravian Connect, MA Connect. It's a database. It's like a LinkedIn, but it's just, for Moravian Academy students, alums, parents, constituents. All Moravian constituents can be part of this. And you link with somebody who will be able to talk to you about, chemical engineering, or say they're doing something in AI, computer science. We've had opportunities for these students to actually do some shadowing, or some interning, or some interviewing. And it just gives them a platform to be very, it's not haphazard. It's sort of, some kids are savvy about this, some are not. And it really is introducing them to networking, which is a skill that they're going to have to use most likely for the rest of their lives if they want to, kind of get their foot in the door, et cetera. So.
Yeah, and it's a good way too, because it sounds very similar to at least the platform portion of it, to like those community pages that you find in social media. Like, I have a question, just moved to the area, can someone help me out? And it's like, oh, here's a local contractor, here's a local engineer, here's a local, they throw it out there. I'm doing a project on X, and then someone that's in this universe is an expert at it or does it. Now they can shadow. I mean, that's something that they could utilize. It's a great resource to have. And to be honest with you, when they graduate, when they get into the college level, and then on their own, there's going to be plenty of platforms where they use such the process in a similar manner to get things that they might need, or to build upon something that they're already doing. So it's really, it's a cool thing that you guys are doing there. I think that's a real fun project. I'm sure, at the upper school level, they get to choose the topic, or that's kind of dictated to them.
It's not dictated. They get to choose. And so, like, for example, some of our students, one student did James Joyce, Can You Hear the Music? So he tied in music with his love of literature. He had one of his advisors be one of our English department faculty members. And so definitely a different type of research-based project. We've had students who've gotten national recognition for some of the things that started out as a Comenius project. Okezwe Bell is just been recognized. He's actually has an article in Forbes magazine. He developed an app. It's called Respiri, I think it is, and it's helping to diagnose people that are having respiratory issues.
Wow.
We've had students who've done things with AI, who've given TED Talks. And a lot of them, these Comenius projects were the springboard for them saying, I could do a TED Talk, I could do this, I could research this. Intel is noticing them. Two of our seniors were nominated out of all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of high school seniors. Two students from Moravian Academy from the state of Pennsylvania were recognized for this, the national honor of graduating seniors. So
that's great.
Doing things to get noticed, and they are very, very dedicated, very smart students, but they're not. I mean, it's because they're given the platform and the opportunity to do this. We are cultivating it, encouraging it, and facilitating. They're driven, they're motivated. We're not telling them they have to do this. And it's been exciting because they have seen success, and it's their own. They own this. It's not something that, is a project that, Moravian Academy made them do.
Sure. No, that's great. I mean, those kind of success stories, I mean, you should be very happy and excited about the alumni that are going to come out, and how they'll be able to give back, whether that's advice, finances, speeches. I mean, there's so many different ways to get back to to your former academy. And I know that independent schools is deep in the heart of many of the current students. Right. Most of the reason why I do everything that I do. So I hold it close, and that's great. Thank you so much for that. But I'm switching gears a little bit. We were talking about some of the pandemic changes that have happened, and obviously the theme today is about things that are here to stay. But before we get to the staying part, what were some programs or processes or things that you guys did in the admissions department to kind of mitigate or to change because of the pandemic? What were some things there?
So, Jesse, I'm sure you felt the same thing as we all did on March, whatever it was, 12th, 14th. We had rumblings of this virus might, curb our style. And nobody, even at that time, perhaps our heads of school did, we never anticipated that it would be what it has, ultimately turned out to be. So we had to pivot. I say we Apollo 13 sort of our admissions, because we repackaged it and sort of shifted very quickly to how are we going to do this completely virtually. Our bread and butter is bringing people on campus. That's how we sell our school. And so, initially, we just said, well, we can still be open for business. We are still accepting applications. Fortunately, that whole process was pushed digitally or electronically, a few years previous. So it wasn't as though, we were dealing still with paper applications, et cetera. And then we offered sort of these Zoom meetings instead of doing on-campus interviews or on-campus meetings with parents. And then we started to think about, this whole idea of a virtual tour. And I'm sure that you've seen, every iteration of that and, these 360 tours. And, what you're really doing is you are allowing that family to step onto campus by doing it either through, a video or, a slideshow. And that's great. And we do, I'll tell you a little bit later, we do have something like that. We got drone footage. We had students that came with their drones and they helped us with, putting this all together. But what we thought was, what we're really missing is the ability to show not just the bricks and mortar, but, the meat of what's actually happening in these classrooms in the school. So sort of an internal peek, and you're not going to get that from just, this is, the Walter Hall, and this is our athletic wellness center. And this is, it's very surfacey. Yeah, it shows you the campus, but it's really not talking about what's happening inside. So we decided probably in April to go a little bit of different route. And we just got together a library, so to speak, of digital assets. We had short little videos about students in our Spanish immersion program. We pulled videos of students giving their Comenius presentations, and again, cut it down to like a 30-second to 1 minute little video. So you weren't, the parent didn't have to sit for, 2 hours just to explore these assets that we were sending them. And so we took all of these things, all of these pieces, and we created a library that we could use to send information to our parents who are inquiring. If it was a very basic inquiry, we had just some, leadership curiosity. I mean, we had some things that were boilerplate that we could send. But as they started asking more questions, we were able to customize this sort of little video / blog presentation for our families. And that was sort of how we started to tell our story, to do admissions.
That's awesome. I mean, was this done more like, okay, here are the main programs. I know that we're going to need videos for X, Y, and Z. But then as the parents started interacting with that, you started to find different niches that you needed to create videos for, and you kind of built those out.
It absolutely. Because as you know, Jesse, we think we know what parents want to know. And then we find out, oh, they're really asking about this or that. So it was very fluid. It started out with us just kind of compiling these assets, and then it grew, and we were able to add additionally, things about score, or, we have a Suzuki music program where our students learn strings at a very young age. We added things about that. And, we had a lot of content. It's amazing how much content we have.
Yeah.
And some of it gets exposed or distributed, and some of it just sits in an archive. So we really were able to pull, a lot of these videos and pictures and blog posts and cultivate it over a time period. So
as far as the process of this tour goes, does the family fill out an inquiry form in advance so that you kind of know what to prepare as far as the video presentations, or do you kind of have a tour with them, explain some things, and then send it to them afterwards? How does that look and work on your end?
So a little bit of both. Our inquiry on our website is where we really try to drive everybody, because then we're getting the same information from everyone. They become part of our data. And that inquiry form is pretty short. We've condensed it because the longer you make them fill something out, you lose them. And one of the things that we added to our inquiry form, if you're familiar at all with the NAIS jobs to be done, sort of like the different types of family that come through an admission process or looking at independent schools. There are certain types of families. Some of them are looking for, an absolute rigorous academic program. Some are looking for personalization, small class sizes. Some of them are looking for, college acceptances, best for, a really good, solid matriculation list. So we had them answer a couple questions. Not that we were categorizing them off the bat, like, oh, this is this type of family or this is this type of family, but it helped us to understand a little bit better, what are they looking for? And if we could message them back with a little bit about what they indicated they were looking for, that's a bigger hook. That is, wow, like, they know what I want. Like they paid attention. It wasn't just an automatic, thank you for your inquiry, we will be mailing you a packet, so that's kind of how we did it. And then you build the relationship, then you start, with we have a drip campaign so that there's messages that get sent out over a period of time. And then there's phone calls and then there's emails. And so you're developing and building that relationship with the family. So that's kind of our hope, though, our catch.
I imagine, telling a different part of the story, that's in their sphere of interest. As far as generally, sometimes, sometimes the admissions rep informs them of something they didn't know about, and they didn't realize that was an interest of theirs, but now they're very happy that they've known it, and it builds value to the school itself. What what changes have you made, that you feel have the biggest impact? I mean, what would it be? This digital library, or was there some other process that you've been able to do that has had kind of a bigger impact than that?
So I think that's had a big impact. That's all that, how are we getting inquiry? The more inquiry you have, hopefully the more applications you have, hopefully the more, acceptances and enrollment. So we're broadening that funnel of getting that inquiry in. Another thing that we did, we started, formally giving and doing virtual open houses. I think many schools are doing them or have been doing them. We started in June, was our first VOH, virtual open house. And then we've been doing one a month ever since. So your story in June is a little bit different now than your story in January. But what we've been able to do is to utilize, and we have used Zoom. I know that there's a lot of other ways that you can do it. I know some people do Facebook Live events. Zoom seems to be the easiest, the best platform for us. Most people are used to it. They can log in without any problem.
Definitely by now.
But definitely by now. Yeah, they had no choice. But why we're finding it so successful is, the pandemic has made us, especially in admissions, figure out new ways to do things that we did previously. Sometimes, the impetus to change isn't because you wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to change the way that we do our open houses. It's necessitated by something happening, right? So unfortunately, the pandemic, we had to figure out how are we going to get this information across to our parents. And so with these virtual open houses, we created a little fun student video, like, rah, rah, lots of music put to it. We had messaging from our administration, head of school. And then we had breakout rooms. So we would have breakout rooms where parents had choice. They could go and hear the student perspective. They could go and hear what are our parents saying. And there's the intimacy of that breakout group. So they would kind of go in that room. There wouldn't be an administrator in there. It would be students and parents. And we trusted, that they would be messaging positively about the school, which they do. And it was an ability for us to go through just the process. What do you need to do? You're here. How do you get to here? And I will tell you, we've had open houses with over 150 people attend. We normally would get maybe a big showing would be 40 on campus. And so I think the stakes are lower. People can log in their living room. They can spend an hour with us and they could decide, wow, I really liked what I heard. I want to hear more. and then they can go from there. And so that is something that I think is here to stay. I know we're going to talk about that later, but that to me, you have faculty who really don't mind giving, a half hour, maybe an hour at most on a Thursday evening. They don't have to go anywhere. They can have their fuzzy slippers on if they want, versus trying to get all of these people on campus on a Saturday morning where they're committing, up to 3 hours of their time.
Well, not only that, I remember when those big open houses on campus, it was just that the moving them throughout the campus, organizing all of that. I was really tasked with kind of focusing on more of the organization of it. So you miss the parent interaction for the most part, because you're just kind of welcoming, you're handing off to this individual, they have this plan, they come back, and then you answer. And it's more of a process where you can kind of do that, with the filter, I guess. You have that first layer where I've got more people than I've ever had. They're all getting information about Moravian Academy or whatever school that you may be doing it. And now when they come for a campus tour, one, it's personalized. You know what I mean? You get to build that relationship value, but they've already gotten that sense of the school. Obviously when you get on campus, and I've always said this, and I think, everyone would know this, it's just, you feel the campus. It's a very different feeling. We can try to build the emotion digitally, especially through virtual open houses. And there's a great connection you can have with people that you speak to. But when you get on campus, how does it make you feel? What is the campus? How inviting is it? What's going on around you? And that's a crucial piece there that is, difficult to translate in video. You can see beauty, but again, that feeling it's a little bit different when they get on campus. So I love that it's been so successful for you. You did talk a lot about the breakout rooms with students and parents. I wonder, even with on-campus things, how have you guys been using your personal resources? I know every school I've talked to, it's been, especially since they've had to transform into a digital sphere, especially with all of the things that you just highlighted. The parents' interactions, the student interactions are so much more necessary, because you can't get them where you would just come on campus and have those random interactions, or maybe sometimes planned. Now with the digital, it's got to be a little bit more proactive. We have to really utilize them in certain ways. How have you guys been, utilizing your personal resources as far as students and parents or teachers and such?
So we have exclusively been using our parents and our students this year remotely. I mean, we haven't been able to bring outside people onto campus, with the exception, our administration was very kind and allowed us to give outdoor tours. After school, the students have left the campus for the most part. So from 3:30 to 4:30, et cetera, we are giving outdoor tours. So they are physically getting on campus. It is between admission director and family. We're not bringing students or, other people in play, only because of cohorting and just following CDC guidelines. If we can relax that, we will open up more into having student-led tours. That's always been what we've done. We've had the student engaging with the family on campus, and then there's a follow-up meeting with admissions. So I'm giving more tours now than I have in a few years. But what we've pivoted to doing is, now that students are not on campus doing a shadow day, they shadow virtually. We do the interview. It's about a half an hour, and part of that interview, there are at least 2, sometimes 3, what we call our student ambassadors. Those are the ones that normally give the campus tours. They engage with the exterior population, meaning, people that are perspectives, et cetera. And so they get on these calls, they go with the student. I put them in a breakout room again, because I know that, they feel a little more comfortable talking about, Moravian and what they do and what this prospective student can do. We've had parent hangouts. Parents have been available to answer questions that, prospective families might have. We've had them as panels on our virtual open houses. We're investigating ways that, we can get them to be even more accessible. I know that there are programs on websites that, click here to talk to one of our lower school parents, click here to talk to one of our upper school parents. So we're working on that and seeing how we can build that out. But, unfortunately, Jesse, right now it's still that virtual connection with our students and our parents. But I think it's working. It's more effective than not engaging with them at all.
Absolutely, and you're definitely not in that boat alone.
Right.
Down here in Florida, obviously things are a little different. We're the Wild West down here, and we kind of just everything's optional, I guess. But in other places in the country, there's been real strict restrictions put on it, and when you're looking at what works best for you, whether you like it or not, sometimes that's going to be the safest method is going to be doing these things after school, transitioning completely virtual. You don't want to risk, safety first, and then from there we have to build out continued business and continue showing our school and showcasing that. But at the same time, safety first, and the current students, faculty, staff that are there is got to be the priority, and any way that you can limit that exposure for them is going to be beneficial. That's great. So, I know we talked about a lot of virtual components. That digital library is so cool, how you're able to, customize responses and interests, and you're continuously building that out, as you interact with parents and things come up that you didn't think of. And I would imagine you update that as well, even with some of the things, that you might have done in April of last year, maybe April of this year, you kind of revamp that a little bit. What do you think is here to stay? I mean, at least for you, what have you transitioned to now that's going to be here to stay?
So I do believe that library, that those assets, I think that, we are getting more and more away from just using the traditional view book as our messaging piece. It's nice to get something in the mail. We do continue to mail out packets that have, profiles and view book and information. But I do believe that this very fluid way to very flashy is not the word, but they're interactive media that our families' perspectives can look at. I think that's absolutely here to stay. And that requires, interfacing a lot with your marketing and communications department, but it's also, you're relying also on classroom teachers to give you content. So you are really, your request and your ask is a lot bigger of your faculty, but they're happy to do it. They want everyone to know all of the really cool things that are happening in their classrooms.
Yes.
So I think that you've now gotten them on board in part of the admission process. Admissions is everybody's job at an independent school, and they feel like they're contributing, rather than just saying, let me know what I can do to help. This is what you can do to help. Feed us content, keep giving us stuff, and we will use it and tailor it in a way that's going to present really well to the public.
Yeah. And, on the teacher's perspective, it's an interesting thought that I didn't even think about. But if they're creating the content and it's, kind of updated as we go, I always remember having tours that you would go by and they were reading that day, or, sometimes they were doing experiments and you go in and like, oh, look how cool this is. And you get to showcase like some, interesting and cool project that class is working on. And then there was other days that, they're dulls. It's a classroom. You're going to have like interesting days and you're going to have, normal days. Right. And, by giving it to them, they're kind of showcasing all of these interesting things that they might have wished the tour had seen had they come along on this particular day. And adding that kind of content, it's rich, it's interesting, it's unique, and that's a great point. I think that the teachers would love to do something like that rather than, just, hey, how's it going? Right. It doesn't look like much, but yesterday we did this. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And it's authentic, Jesse. That's the big thing. It's like, this really was a class that happened. We can talk about all the fabulous things that are happening at our school. And it's not that the parents don't believe us, but when you really see, they did that lesson. Those first graders were doing, I don't know, they're exploring the, mitosis, and wow, like that's crazy. Those are first graders. And they get to see that this is truly what their experience is.
That's amazing. Last question to kind of follow back on that. When you're compiling this as a faculty member, let's say, How are we doing it? Are we using iPads to video this? Or do they have someone that's going around at different days and doing things like a content calendar, and they kind of hit up different classrooms based on their curriculum? How does that work? How are you able to gather all of that?
So we're relying heavily on just the savviness of our faculty. They're using, a lot of times it's QuickTime videos. They're using either an iPad or even a phone device, as long as they're holding it, horizontally. We do have two full-time people in our marketing and communications, and so one of the women who is responsible for developing most of the content on our social media, she will put out a calendar. She will ask for certain items. So there's a request, there's a call, and then she will go around and capture a lot of, whether it's the video or whether she needs to write up a short blog to accompany a story.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that insight. That's awesome. I mean, that's a great program. It doesn't seem like there's any reason for it to, die down in any fashion, including when everyone's able to get back on campus. It's still, especially with a follow-up, you can even have those on-campus tours. You can still follow up with those interesting videos. There's also tons of reasons to do it. So switching gears a little bit here, we always like to close the show with getting some regional outlooks. And the Pennsylvania, here we go, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. What's it looking like there? I imagine it's cold like everywhere else in the country right now.
Except for Florida. What do you have, like 70 degrees in there?
I don't want to make you upset, but we've been hitting the 80s pretty routinely down here. I'm supposed to get into the 80s today. So I think spring's here. Pollen's already out. I have to take my Zyrtec every day. So we are unlike anywhere else in the country. Maybe Southern California might be enjoying weather like us. But how's everything in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania? What does the enrollment market look like there? How are things?
So we're cautiously optimistic, and I say cautiously because, as I mentioned before, our market is slightly different. A lot of times Philadelphia schools, it's not if independent school, it's what independent school, so they're kind of competing amongst other independents as to what are we showing, what's the value of our school, not necessarily the value of coming to independent school in the first place. We've been in the enviable position of being able to be on campus 5 days a week since August 25th. So we're in person. And the reason that we can do that is, a lot of things. We are autonomous. We are governed by a board of directors and adhere to National Association of Independent Schools. We don't have a union that's telling us what we can or cannot do or what we should or should not do. So we knew it was very important for students to be able to have that choice to come on campus. We are a dual platform, so every teacher has a classroom link and is doing a virtual presentation simultaneously with the in-class. It's a little challenging for the teachers. They've gotten very, very good at it. But if you opt to do a virtual, you are home, you can choose to do that. So it's not where you'll have a different lesson or at a different time or where if it's asynchronous. So that's made us attractive. Many, many, many of the public schools in our area have either gone completely virtual or they're hybrid, meaning that they're in school maybe 1-2 days a week for a short period of time, and then they're on a virtual platform for the rest of the week. It's made parents very nervous, very unhappy. We can all buckle down and do something for a couple months in the spring of 2020, but now they don't see the end of this.
Right.
And so it's short term, it's short-sighted for us to rely on the fact that we now have people that are displeased with the public option, and they first come and look at us because they say, oh, Moravian's there 5 days a week. We're going to come and look at that. And then what happens is that they realize what they've been missing all along, and they start saying, oh my goodness, like I did not know that my kid could have this experience. I was not aware of what independent school was or is or can do or can benefit. And so we have seen an uptick. We're about 38% increase in our applications from this time last year. We're about 25% increase in inquiries from last year at this time. So people are definitely interested.
Yeah.
How that's going to play out, that's always, you don't know. But certainly the forecast is looking very healthy.
Well, I would imagine, there does seem to be this trend, and we've talked about it with a lot of schools that are kind of in that, 2-hour to hour range outside of the major cities.
Mm-hmm.
And, there is this influx of people moving out of the urban areas into, at least in the U.S. I don't want to say worldwide, but definitely in the U.S. There's a slight exodus out of these urban areas, especially with the pandemic. And the complications that come with living in such a close-knit area with people on top of you, below you, beside you, everywhere in an urban area. So, I wonder if that enrollment trend for you guys is maybe a little bit of new movers, people moving, or maybe they had a house out there, they're becoming a little bit more permanent at their second home rather than their first home inside the city. That's been benefiting some schools, all across the country that are living outside those urban areas. Do you think maybe you're seeing some of that, or are these locals, they've been there for a long time and now they're just fed up with their public schools?
Combination. So some of it is local. They've thought about it, and they never fully investigated. But absolutely, I don't know. Is it called urban flight? I don't know what it's called. When people are moving out of larger cities, they're looking more for a suburban sprawl. In the Lehigh Valley, we have there's Lafayette, there's Lehigh, there's a number of universities. We also have two excellent hospitals, teaching hospitals in the area, St. Luke's Hospital, Lehigh Valley Hospital and Health Network, and they are recruiting physicians. I mean, they're just growing and growing and growing. So they're recruiting physicians from all over the nation and even the world. So you've got doctors that are coming in from, Boston, from California, and they're looking to set up shop, to purchase a home, and their primary is, where's my kid going to go to school, and then we'll buy our home, not the other way around. And so we are seeing, we're seeing that as well. So that's been super beneficial for us.
Excellent. So, maybe we've already alluded to this a little bit, but for you, where do you see the biggest enrollment opportunity for you guys this year?
So I think the biggest enrollment opportunity is sort of this being able to get our story out, getting our message out. Like I mentioned, the attendance at virtual open houses. We've been able to market using sort of some targeted. I don't think we're using geofencing. I know we looked into that, but really kind of looking at zip codes and being able to target the message about we're having an open house. So appealing to markets that might be interested. And so I think that, we're able to get more people to sit in a seat. We weren't always able to get people to come on campus and to kind of hear our message. Once they got there, they were very, very interested. So I think our biggest marketing opportunity with this is that more and more people are being able to hear, the story that we have to tell about Moravian Academy and the educational opportunities.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that didn't know that they were interested, and now they are.
Yeah.
You got to get out there, and like you said, kind of more to your point, that's not unknown and unheard of in other parts of the country, but people just didn't know what independent school was, what it offers, the different things that they may offer in their region. It's sometimes an eye-opening experience to do a campus tour of an independent school when you're only used to public. So that's definitely a huge opportunity for you. I hope all goes well. I know you've got a big re-enrollment push coming at the end of the week.
We
and
do.
Then obviously it's off to the races until we fill up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting though. It's always exciting. Never a dull day.
Excellent. Well, Ingrid, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. I think we've gone over quite a bit. You've given our viewers quite a bit of information and some definite thoughts, especially with that digital library, how we're able to personalize a lot of those tours and those interactions with families, getting the students involved in the virtual world, the faculty involved, a lot of those projects. I wish you nothing but the best. I think I think those are going to be doing great for you for years to come. Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Jesse. It's been a delight. It's been a pleasure.
See you later. Stay warm up there if you can. Bye. Well, that'll do it for us today. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out this full episode at schoolcraftdigital.com. We also have it on our YouTube and Facebook pages. Go ahead, like and share. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Have a great President's Day.